Hi everyone. So the title of the video is not clickbait. I may have been exposed to COVID-19 or the novel coronavirus as it's also known. Um, so basically I got the call late last night and it was from the taxi company that took me from the airport back to here where I am now at my sister's place in self-isolation. And the taxi driver has previously carried a passenger who has now tested positive for the virus. So he is now being tested, and they've told me that then they'll get back to me and let me know whether he has it or not. So maybe I've been exposed, maybe I haven't, don't know at this stage, waiting to hear. And look, it's not something I'm overly worried about. In a way, it might be quite nice to get, if he does have it, to get tested. Um, and again, either way with that, if I get it and then I recover and test negative, maybe that gets me out of my self isolation a little bit earlier. And then on the flip side, if I get tested, I definitely know I don't have it, so that's not a bad thing either way. So yeah, kind of a little bit ironic. Get all of your plans and travels interrupted, and you have to come back and to somewhere it's supposed to be safer for you, and not that I thought it was. Um, and turns out it's really not. I've probably had my closest exposure ever by coming back here. But that's just the way it goes. It's funny actually. I was joking with the taxi driver on the way back, and because he said, "Look, I should probably be in self-isolation," and I said, "Yeah, that's right. You've probably had much closer contact with people who have a much higher chance of being exposed and having the virus than I had in all of the time I was away, and would have likely to be had going forwards." But that's just the way it is. Um, so how is this shocking news affecting me? As I said, not really bothering me too much. I was already planning to do all the right things in self-isolation. And of course, it's going to make me even more mindful to make sure I do that. I guess one thing it does, the classic, anytime it's like, oh, that desire to clear my throat. Um, is that something? Or if I sniff a little bit, is that because of some dust, or maybe it's something else? And look, there was a little bit of that even before I heard that I may have been exposed. Even going to the airport in Bali where I was, they before you go through into the check-in area, they test your temperature with a little temperature reading gun. They shoot you in your head with a temperature gun, and as you're walking up, it's like, ooh, am I a little hot? Hope I'm not too hot. So just very aware of those sorts of things. But other than that, it's not really a big deal. Um, but I guess this video could be a little bit of a cliffhanger because I don't know yet. I haven't heard back from the company. You'll probably find out in the next video what the story is, because they told me they'd either call me last night, which I thought, wow, that would have been fast, or today. I reckon they'll call me today sometime to let me know what the result is from the taxi driver. So this video, what am I going to go over in this video? Well, I've already told you the big shocking news, but I thought I'll go through what it was like for me to arrive in New Zealand at the airport in Auckland, because there's going to be a lot of New Zealanders coming back over the next few days, and maybe a little bit longer than that. The New Zealand government has actually requested that all New Zealanders temporarily overseas, so not people who are established and living elsewhere, but people who are traveling for whatever reason, to come back to New Zealand as soon as they possibly can. And that is because a number of reasons, but one of the big ones is airlines are just cancelling more and more commercial flights, and so there's going to be less and less options to get back if you need to later on. And that was why I so very quickly, after my one set of plans were interrupted, the very next day I I caught a flight back to New Zealand because I figured the longer I wait, the more flights would be cancelled. So I was a day ahead of the official government announcement. So good on me. So I'll talk about what it was like coming through the Auckland airport, and then I'll also talk about what my interaction with the taxi driver was like. Maybe there'll be some interesting things there. And then also what's required of me actually in my self-isolation, and just what I'm doing with my day-to-day in self-isolation or quarantine, kind of the same thing. So arriving back through the airport, a few little interesting things. It's not particularly stressful or anything, but a few little, maybe the systems aren't fully up to scratch where they need to be just yet. I guess the first thing, where all passengers walking through a corridor on our way through to baggage claim and all that sort of thing, and they were handing out cards for us to be able to fill in with some health information. So normally in New Zealand there's an arrivals card which has all your information and customs declaration on it, but this time there was an extra one, a health declaration card, which essentially you put in all of the same information, your flight number and where you've been and all that sort of thing. And some countries have this all the time, but this is something that you don't normally have in New Zealand. And they also they tell you, there's someone telling you, which to tick yes to a particular question, because there's questions, have you been at a level 1, level 2, level 3 risk country? And of course that's changed rapidly over time, and so they say tick yes to this one, so okay, that's the level risk that I've come from. But as we're walking along, then a staff member from the airport says, okay, if you've just been to Rarotonga, come off into this lane over here. Because for New Zealand, at the moment, anyone returning from anywhere in the world, except the Pacific Islands, has to go into self-isolation. So because the Pacific Islands up until now have been clean of the virus, so anyone coming from anywhere else, self-isolation. Pacific Islands, you can enter the country and go about your business as usual. But that means they were just walking along right next to everyone else immediately prior to that. So it might have been a good idea to separate them earlier rather than mixing them with all the other passengers. Anyway, that is what it is. Another funny thing, so I eventually got to the immigration agent. So coming in, so none of the e-readers are working because they want you to speak to an actual agent. And so quite unusual, the line, because there's a line for New Zealand passport holders and a line for all other passports, and the line for the New Zealand passport holders was much longer than the one for other passports, because of course a lot of New Zealanders returning to New Zealand, not many people coming from other parts of the world, because why would you if you're just going to have to self-isolate? But they then did say, as I was approaching, they said, you can go whichever one you want. If you've got a New Zealand passport holder, you can go to the other line because it's shorter. So of course I did that. So I got to the front of the queue, spoke to the immigration officer, and the immigration officer said, what's happened to the bottom of your form? Because on the form it says, tear this part off and take it with you. So that's what I did. I read the form, said tear it off and take it with you. And this little part of the form, it's got some, some information, the phone number to call, and if you have symptoms and yada yada. So I did this. Apparently, no one else is doing this, so much so that the immigration officer said, what's happened to your form? And I said, is no one reading the form it says to do that? She's like, oh, no. Not that encouraging, eh? If you want to be able to follow the advice and the guidelines, it helps to know what they are, folks. Good idea to actually read them. And so they actually also gave us another sheet of paper, I think separately, this one, which has more information on it as well. And they sort of say, make you've got to self-isolate and the symptoms and the phone number. They highlight that to try to draw your attention to it. So I guess that's one good thing. And other than that, it was all very normal. Went out, met my taxi driver, and I would have preferred to just handle my own bags, but he was a little bit quick on it, and helped load my bags in. And so, that's okay, not a big deal. Um, had a good chat on the way back about the current situation. And then, old habits die hard. He went to shake my hand as once I was out once I was out of the car and saying goodbye, and I did not shake his hand. Made a little joke about making an elbow bump. Didn't even elbow bump actually, but made a little joke of it. And because this is the thing, old habits die hard. We're just so used to doing that. And I guess that's something for people to be aware of. You really need to change some of your habits over the next little while. So anyway, that was my experience coming in to New Zealand at this unusual time. So I'm going to move on to the next bit, which is what do I have to do? What am I supposed to do while I'm in this self-isolation? What are the New Zealand regulations? So I'm actually going to do a screen share for this. First time I've ever done one of these, but hopefully that will work okay. So give me a moment and I will get that ready. Okay, so hopefully that's working okay. Hopefully you can see everything okay. This is the official New Zealand website. It is the one that was on this piece of paper if you wanted more information about what you're supposed to do in self-isolation. And of course I want to make sure I do it properly. So one of the first things I did when I got back was open this up and have a look. And it's got all the information here. And it's self-isolation, but it's really not that onerous. I think they've tried to make it very doable for people, maybe excessively so to some extent, because there's some basic advice here, but there's more things, like there's what if you have to self-isolate at home with other people, so in the same house. Now they want to make it doable for people, but I don't know, is that really self-isolating? It kind of is, and of course you have to make it doable for people, but truly self-isolating surely would be that everyone in the same household then has to also be isolated. But what they have is basically to say stay away from the other people, and it says here don't be closer than 2 meters and for more than 15 minutes. So you're supposed to stay away in general, but if you need to talk to someone, you can be, as long as you're 2 meters away, you can chat to them. And so that's nice in a way, but sharing the same household probably seems a little risky. I guess you could say in some way that's what I'm doing here. Not really, because it's separate. I'm closed off from the rest of the house. Really is separate. So yeah, not really. But they have requirements here. It's like, well, if you are in the same space as other people, use your own toothbrush. Don't use the same eating utensils or drinking. Wash your towels and things, and all these sorts of things. So trying to make the best of it for people. So in practical terms for me, it means, well, yeah, I'm here. But one of the things that I actually think is really good is they allow you, I'm not sure where it is in here, but somewhere in here, they say you can go out for a walk or for a run if you want, to get some exercise. And I think that's actually really good. It basically, as long as you can stay away from other people. And that's not that hard to do in New Zealand. I guess, again, very, very fortunate because we are not that densely populated. I'm here in Auckland, the biggest city in the country. I'm out in the suburbs though. And so it's quite easy to actually go out and stay quite a distance from anyone else. Never have to get close to them. Occasionally someone approaches in the opposite direction and you've got to then veer off to stay away from them. But other than that, it's really not that difficult. And so I think that's really good that they're still allowing us to do this at this stage. I expect that could change in the future as as the situation changes. But because to maintain your health and your well-being, fresh air, exercise, as I mentioned before, gentle exercise is really important. And so if you're able to do it, I think that's really good. Of course, that would be much more difficult if you were in the center of town or in a big city, because you're going to have a hard time maintaining that distance from other people. But as of now, I'm actually, I'm self-isolated here, but I can go outside. So that's really nice. Let's see, anything else interesting here? That's probably about it. I guess I also like that they do have some guidelines here where they're saying, for some ideas about mental health and well-being, to encourage people to take care of themselves while they're in self-isolation. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to, you can look at my face again more. Well, I think you could see my face before anyway. Again, first time using this. So what have I been doing today? Well, you could see from the little intro clip that I did figure out where I'm going to do some Qigong. I didn't show you much Qigong there, but sort of setting up my space, getting into a routine of both meditation and Qigong, because these are things that are going to, well, just be good for me, but, help me through this time. And also as a general thing, I guess my first real health tip for this video, in terms of immunity, gentle exercise is where it's at. Strenuous exercise, it's good for so many reasons. There's so many good things from it. But if you're looking just for immunity effects, strenuous exercise means your body also has to recover from that strenuous exercise. And during that time, essentially your system's resources are low, and it actually puts a strain on your immunity. Because it's having to deal with all of the metabolic waste and things from the strenuous exercise. So if you're really interested in keeping your immunity strong, what you want is gentle exercise, because there's the value in activating and getting all your systems working and moving, and this helps to eliminate waste and things like this. But you're not putting the excess load of strenuous exercise on you. And so, of course, Qigong is perfect in a situation like that, to find that balance of, yes, being active, exercising gently, but in a way that builds you up and strengthens your immunity, rather than, potentially reduces it during that period of recovery time if you're doing something really strenuous. So I did that, and then the rest of the day I've been working on some tech issues. So this is something new, this sharing a screen. I'm using a different camera and setup at the moment, and I'm working on some other issues because and some other things as well. But one of the things I've actually had in mind and sort of been working towards for some time was with the teaching that I do on longwhitecloudqigong.com, as well as the pre-recorded courses and things that are there, to offer some streaming sort of live, or at least partially live, classes and Q&A sessions. And so, now is a very, very relevant time for this. It was relevant prior to all of this happening, and now it's extra relevant for people. So I'm trying to sort those issues out so that I'm going to be able to start doing some things with that soon, to reach out and connect with different people. And that's basically my day. So yeah, I will hopefully get the big news later on today or tonight. If not, hopefully it won't be too long. Find out whether I was exposed in close contact to the virus or not. And so that's going to be the cliffhanger for this episode. Hopefully I will find out by the next episode, and you'll get to find out too, if I was in fact exposed and what the steps are from there.